and welcome to another episode of the Divorced Woman's Guide podcast. How are you guys doing today? Don't forget to hit subscribe because I have an episode that comes out every single week. And as a reminder too, perhaps you have heard me mention this before, but maybe not. I wrote a book and it's called Divorce Sucks. Now What? The 5 Steps to Heal and Recover as you walk down the aisle from I do to I'm divorced. You can purchase it on paperback or on Kindle on Amazon. So be sure to check that out. And there's a link down below in the description and the comments. So let's jump into today's episode, which is all about why forgiving yourself is crucial for you to move on. And there are many struggles that a lot of us face when we are even thinking about the word forgiveness. Now, I will say again, I struggled with this so much. It was the hardest part of my recovery process when I was going through my healing. And so I want to try to relate to those struggles that I know a lot of you guys go through, and perhaps you're struggling with one or all of these right now. The number one struggle that I was feeling as I was trying to move into a place of forgiving myself was guilt. Many of you guys feel the guilt all the time. I felt guilty because my marriage failed, because I was responsible for half of it, right? Marriage takes 2 people. And this guilt was like incapacitating me, right? It was so difficult for me to let it go because the guilt is what contributed to the shame that I felt. It contributed to my overwhelm. It was distressing to me and thinking about what I was doing to my kids. It also impacted my worthiness and just to even see my value as a person. Was I even valuable to be forgiven? And it just manifested in such a horrible way where even though I knew I wasn't the only one responsible for my marriage falling apart, I also knew that I felt the weight of it. And I kept questioning whether or not I had done enough to save it. And so that guilt, it was such a heavy, heavy thing I was carrying around and really kept me from forgiving myself. The next thing that I struggled with was blaming myself. So many women, okay, I'm speaking on behalf of us, we blame ourselves, right? We could have done something different. I could have saved the relationship. I could have changed them. All these feelings then leading back into that circle of shame. And of course, just lack of confidence, self-doubt. And that blame piece was just, I bared the weight of the whole thing. In fact, for the first 8 months after our separation, my children blamed me because they heard me kick their dad out. And it was something that I bore the burden of for 8 months. And it just added on top of my own blame that I had created this situation for them and for me. And it just kept fostering my shame. It made me feel inadequate. It just tanked my self-esteem. And so you might be feeling these things too. Self-blame is a big one. The third thing that I also struggled with was negative self-talk. So how many of you guys have that little voice inside of your head, maybe not so little, that constantly is criticizing you, telling you that you made this mistake, you made that mistake, oh, you didn't deliver in this way, or you've got all these shortcomings. And my goodness, the negative self-talk is rampant when we are going through a divorce. And when someone actually, I'll say it this way. What we do is when we hear these negative thoughts, we go seeking for evidence to support those thoughts. And so it becomes this hamster wheel. We perpetuate this cycle of truth of these negative words that we hear. And no wonder our self-esteem is in the toilet. No wonder our worth is garbage. No wonder we have no self-confidence. And no wonder, how can we forgive ourselves if we have If we have a voice inside of ourselves that says, yeah, you're not worthy of that, don't even go there. The number 4 struggle that I felt quite frequently was, and really was a big reason why I couldn't let myself be forgiven. And that was because, well, if I forgive myself, then what are people going to say? Right? What are other people going to think about me if all of a sudden I have forgiven myself? They're going to think that I'm the one that did the failing in the marriage, right? So this fear of judgment was really, really big for me when it came to figuring out that I was worthy of being forgiven. But this judgment just completely added on to the other 2 struggles that I discussed earlier, which is the negative self-talk and the self-blame piece. So that fear of judgment, it was a big one. And then the last struggle that I felt was the ability to release. Some of you may call this letting go. And it meant letting go of my past, of who I was in my marriage. And, part of letting go was also letting go of the resentment and the anger and the bitterness that I felt towards my ex-husband. And if I didn't stop drinking the poison, expecting him to die, I was never going to let myself get into a place where I could feel forgiven. And so many of us stay in this place. This is actually one of the places that I know we stay in way too often. And a lot of that is because we think that holding on to the resentment is going to make things better. But what it does is it only prolongs the pain. And hanging on to that resentment is what's preventing you from moving forward and stepping into the world of forgiveness. And so in order for us to get there, it's really important to do 2 things. 3. I'm going to say 3 things. Self-love. Okay. When we practice self-love, that is where true healing begins. It's how we manifest abundance, because we're taking care of ourselves and we are doing things to make us feel fulfilled and happy. Number 2 is gratitude, right? Being grateful for just coffee in the morning, for a hot shower, right? Shifting your focus from a glass half empty to a glass half full, and really focusing on what you are grateful for every single day, no matter how small that may seem. And the 3rd thing I will say for you guys is self-compassion. It is so important that we show ourselves this, especially during divorce. So self-compassion can be treating yourself like you would a friend. It could be, some of the things that I talked about before, right, is reframing that negative self-talk. Perhaps it's practicing mindfulness, right? Just being aware, being present, and that self-care piece. And I know that this is so hard. Trust me, I've been there. Like I said, this was the hardest part for me, was the forgiveness piece, but it is so incredibly necessary. And it allows you to step into that place where you leave those negative emotions, that negative energy behind, so that you can move forward with your life. Listen, at the end of the day, none of us are perfect, right? That's part of what self-forgiveness is all about. We're not perfect. And when we allow ourselves to step away from and release the blame, release the guilt over anything and everything having to do with your marriage and your divorce, letting go of those resentments and the negative talk and the negative emotions, and instead focusing on what is positive in your life. What are you grateful for? What do you love about yourself? Because at the end of the day, we all make mistakes. And what's important is, what is it that you're going to do from here on forward? What are you going to do differently next time? You deserve to forgive yourself. Let me be the one to tell you. It is so incredibly powerful when you step into that place and you see that life gets to be lived, and it's going to impact your health as it relates to every single area of your life. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this week's episode. I really have been stepping into this conversation around forgiveness, because it is something that has continued to come up for me as it relates to different people in my life. And it's something that I'm being reminded of how hard it was. And I know that it's something each of you guys are struggling with. And as you know, with my podcast, my goal is to be that guide, to be somebody who is sharing her wisdom from personal experience and also from what I teach my clients, so that you can help yourself as you are navigating this new path that you are heading down, or perhaps you are already on it and you need some support. So thank you guys for tuning into this week's episode. As a reminder, don't forget, if you guys want to join my Facebook group, it's called the Divorce Rehab. It's a great community where it is private and I am sharing my wisdom with you guys in there on an almost daily process. And I look forward to seeing you guys or talking to you in next week's episode. Thank you so much for joining me. Sending you so much love, light, and joy as always. Mwah. Bye, everybody.